Hello my friends, for those who are seeing me for the first time, I am Azzo. I will tell you the strangest stories that have happened in our world. Let's start the story. A father, a mother, 2 sons and 2 daughters were murdered in cold blood in their bedrooms. And as a result, a crime occurred that many described as a massacre, where 6 people were killed at the same time and in this horrific way. Frankly, this is something that the mind does not accept. A crime that shook America and the whole world, and is still being told to this day, because of the mystery and strangeness surrounding it. Today I will tell you one of the strangest murders known to history, and you will not expect all the mystery and strangeness surrounding this story. The details of the horror that the Defoe family experienced are interesting, as the Amityville neighborhood in the suburbs of New York enjoys a strange calm. This calm was the calm before the storm on the night when no one knows how the crime occurred or why, and what exactly happened. This crime is surrounded by many questions, which are still being asked to this day. Was it a demonic possession according to the killer's claim? Or was there someone who helped him carry out this crime? Or was the house really haunted? On the evening of November 13th, 1974, a young man in his 20s entered a bar in the town of Amityville, in the suburbs of New York. He was clearly agitated and scared, and everyone's eyes turned to him after he started screaming and saying, "Someone killed my father and mother. Someone shot my father and mother in the house." Murders were not common in those days, so people were surprised, and some even ran with him to his house to see what had happened. As soon as they entered the house, everything was normal. No traces of blood, no signs of violence. Everything was normal. But after they went up to the 2nd floor and in one of the bedrooms, they found the father, Ronald, and the mother, Louise, killed on their bed. They were lying on their bed, sleeping next to each other. It was clear that someone had surprised them and shot them while they were sleeping. But what we must focus on is that they were sleeping on their faces in another room on the same floor. There was the same scene of 2 boys, 14 and 9 years old, dead in the same way. Meanwhile, cars started. The police arrived at the house and the news quickly spread among the investigators and forensic experts. During the search, they also found 2 more bodies in a 3rd room, 2 girls, one 13 years old and one 18 years old, also killed in the same way. The girls' names were Dwayne and Allison. It was clear that the killer had killed all the members of the Defoe family except for Ronald Defoe, the eldest son, who discovered the crime and ran to the bar and told everyone. As we mentioned at the beginning of the story, during the initial investigation, the police discovered that the killer had used a .35mm caliber rifle and killed all the victims, and that all the victims were killed while they were sleeping. The father and mother were killed with 2 bullets, one in the chest and one in the head. As for the sons, they were shot once in the head. The strange thing is that all the bodies were face down, meaning they were sleeping on their faces. The first person to investigate the type of police was Ronald, the son, who claimed that he had left for work at 6 in the morning the previous day. He said that he had spent his entire day working at the car showroom he owned, and that when the afternoon came, he went to a friend's apartment and sat there for a while. Ronald, he says that on that day he called his family more than once, and no one answered the phone, so he called them at 6 o'clock. He went home and knocked on the door and no one opened it for him. He entered the house through the window and went up to the 2nd floor and was surprised by the scene he saw. After that, he ran to the bar and asked for help from the people. When the police asked him, "Do you suspect a specific person, Ronaldo?" he told them, "I suspect a guy named Louis Fellaini, one of the gangsters. We had a problem and he threatened to eliminate all members of my family." The police, of course, turned their attention to the gangsters and said that Ronaldo might be targeted by them because of his suspicious relationships with them, and that the matter might be a revenge operation. 2 days after the investigations, the police began investigating the neighbors and relatives to discover that the father, Ronald Sr. was a firm, strict person who was quick to anger. His relatives said that he would turn from a rational person into a raging animal at the slightest provocation, and that his son, Ronald, was even worse than him. His morals were bad, and that he was on good terms with his father and always had problems between them. But despite all these differences, Ronald Sr. was a well-off person and never brought money to his children. His wife, Louise, had a reputation as a loyal woman who endured her husband's temper and beatings for many years. The police knew that Ronald Jr. was addicted to drugs, and his friends described him as a violent and quick-tempered person. They also knew that he sometimes dealt in weapons. What increased the police's suspicions about Ronald Jr. was that the investigators found 2 wooden boxes in the house of the type used to store weapons, one of which was for a .35 caliber rifle, which is the same rifle that was used to commit the crime. After the autopsy report arrived, the suspicions about Ronald Jr. turned into a direct accusation because the report stated that the Devitt family members were killed between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock after midnight on the night before their bodies were discovered. That means that Ronald Jr. was present in the house. Of course, the police quickly arrested Ronald Jr. on charges of killing his family members. At first, he denied all the charges against him and the claim of innocence. But after they surrounded the police with humiliation and with the great contradiction in his statements, they say that he lowered his head down and started talking. Everything happened quickly. When I started, I don't know how to stop. Everything happened quickly. After that, he confessed to the police how he committed the crime. And according to his words, he says that he heard voices in his ear telling him and ordering him to kill. He says that at first, he shot my father in the back. And when he was startled from his sleep and tried to attack him, he surprised him with another shot to the head. In the meantime, his mother woke up and started begging him not to kill her. He says that he shot her in the chest with a shot, then in the head. Then he went to his brother's room and shot each one of them in the head. Then he went to his sister's room and killed them in the same way. He says after that, he went down to the lower floor and took a shower. And after that he took his clothes. He took his blood-stained clothes and the murder weapon and went to a distant dumpster to hide them. The strange thing is that the police investigations say that the victims were asleep at the time of the crime, and that the gun used was not equipped with a silencer, which puzzled the police and forensic medicine, who returned to the house again to see how these crimes were committed so quickly, and how the process of moving between rooms was so fast and made them reconsider the matter, and that it is not possible for one person to have committed all these crimes alone. On October 14, 1975, Ronald's trial began. During the trial, Ronald's performance ranged between extreme calm and mockery of the crime, and even cases of hysterical screaming. He even tried to attack the public prosecutor. This made them seek the help of a psychiatrist to decide whether Ronald was originally crazy or not. Someone entered and tried to convince the court that Ronald was crazy and committed the crime while he was not conscious. However, the thing that Ronald kept repeating during the trial was that he committed all this crime under the influence of a demonic voice that had taken over his mind. And he kept talking. He killed. But the insanity argument was not convincing to the court, who unanimously agreed that Ronald was guilty of killing all his family members. And the judge sentenced him to 150 years in prison, 25 years for each crime. Despite Ronald Defoe's guilt and imprisonment, most people were not convinced by his account of how he killed all his family members. And this was very confusing to the police. How was Ronald able to kill 6 people from his family alone? And with a gun that was not equipped with a silencer? How did no one hear the sound of gunshots? It is normal that all the family members would wake up from the first shot. And assuming that they did not hear the sound because they were in other rooms. What was driving them crazy was that there were no signs of resistance. and that all the bodies were lying on their faces and no one was moving them. Is it possible that no one raised their heads so as not to see what was happening? This made the police insist that Ronald did not commit a crime by himself, and that there was someone helping him. And what was driving them even more crazy was why. Why would someone kill his entire family? He might have a disagreement with someone, but how about everyone? I mean, everyone knows that he had a bad relationship with his father and killed him. And his mother was in the same room and he had to kill her. But why do you walk to your brothers and sisters' rooms and kill them? There is no need for this mystery, which they are still searching for an answer to today. Of course, during his time in prison, Ronald told the police more than once about the way he carried out the crime. And every time he gave them a different story. And his stories are not consistent at all. A writer named Rick Athona met Ronald in 2000 and interviewed him. Ronald told him in the interview that he committed this crime with his sister. Dwayne, meaning his sister, helped him carry out the crime, as well as two of his friends, and he refused to tell them. The strange thing is that the criminal evidence report proved in an unambiguous manner that Dwayne had gunpowder on her clothes on the night of the crime. And this made some investigators favor this story and that his sister, Dwayne, was involved with him in the crime. Ronald is still insisting on his story that he heard voices ordering him to kill and was unable to control himself. The mystery of this crime is not only a secret that no one knew what happened that night after the crime took place. A year later, the government took control of the house and it became their property and rented it to a family called the Lotus. But the family could not bear to stay in the house for more than 28 days. And according to them, there are strange sounds and strange things that happen in the house at night, and that there are creatures living in the house. George Lotus, the head of the family who lived in this house for 28 days, wrote a book about the family's experiences with this house. And the book's story was an inspiration for the production of a movie called The Horror of Amityville in 2005. Many people say that this house is haunted by the spirit of one of the leaders of the Red Guns, who died a long time ago and was buried in a place very close to the house. Stories and novels tell that there was a forbidden sexual relationship between Ronald and his sister Dwan, and after their affair was exposed, they were forced to kill all the family members. The Defoe family house, over time, has become one of the icons of horror in the world, and is one of the most famous houses in America. Unfortunately, the fame of this house was due to tragic events like this. This was our story today. I hope you liked it. Don't forget to support the video with a like and subscribe to the channel. Whoever has suggestions for stories they would like to tell, do not be stingy with us and write them to us in the comments. I will see you in a new video.